Welcome to Who's Your Mother podcast, where we discover who we are as souls and mothers through Reiki, spirituality, and healing. Hi, I'm Carolina, your host and Reiki master. I'm so very excited you're here today, and let's get started. Welcome to Who's Your Mother podcast. I'm Carolina, your Reiki master, womb healer, and your host. Today we have a very incredible and special guest. She's very dear to my heart. Her name is Caitlynn Eldridge, and she is also many things to me. First of all, she's my CFO and my CPA, but also a dear, dear friend of mine who has just been exactly what I've needed the past few years. She is, if you know her, you know that she has a heart of gold. So let's get started. So Caitlynn, since I gave you a little introduction, do you want to give an introduction of yourself? Like describe yourself. You want to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Sure, I'll do the Instagram live one. So I am Caitlynn. I am a mom of 4. 2 of those are twins, CPA, CFO, military spouse. It feels like all the things these days. I've very much resisted too much of those identity markers or trying to get down to one. So that's a lot. Very left-brained, strategic person who has very much loved the right brain and other side that you've brought to life in the last 3 years that we've been friends and working together.
Oh my goodness. I remember the first time. I remember the person who told me about you the first time. It was a local businesswoman and it was a mutual contact. And I was like, I kept hearing your name in the birth and postpartum circles because I think we shared the same doula.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think that was the first contact. And then postpartum doula we shared. And then unknowingly. And then as I started to seriously enter the entrepreneur space, I started bumping into you. I remember there was a fempreneur fair here in Omaha, and I came to your table, and I was going to every table, and I got your card, and you were so impressive, and you had this big long table, and I was like, I don't really know anything about bookkeeping. I didn't know what bookkeeping was. I had no idea what I was doing. So I just remember that was my first official encounter. And then I don't know if you remember this, we took a class with a wonderful human, Beth Ryan.
Oh, it was beautiful. It was a wonderful class.
I was like, I just saw you and I was like, oh my gosh, she might be the most beautiful human I've ever seen in my whole life. And then I remember you had an iPad, and I am a little slow with technology. I learned technology fast, but I was I had an iPhone, but I had never had an iPad or an iMac or whatever. I just had my work computer, which is Lenovo. And you would describe how you're so impressive and so put together. And it was goodness, she must be in her 30s, and you were in your 20s, and you had this iPad and a pencil. And I was so impressed. You're yeah, when I go to my person's, my client's home and I take notes and they meet with them, I just put them in here and I just take notes. So I was like, oh my God, she's so advanced. And I was just one day I want to be like her. One day I'm going to be like that. I'm going to be put together, collected, polished, and I was I'm already beautiful. But in that room, I just remember she was teaching us how to do online courses. Gosh, what year was that?
I think it was before we moved, so it would have been now, spring of 2019.
Was it that long? Oh yeah, because it was already after James Wedmore, and I had already met Beth. Yeah, so that was wild. So I just remember, and then during our break, you said, yeah, I'm a mom of twins. And I was just and then I was even more impressed. And I was wow, I was she's a mom of twins. I only had Ollie, and I was super postpartum. I was just coming out of that. Wow. Are you sure that was in 2018?
No, I think that would have been too early. I think it was before we moved, because it was at that.
It was definitely before you moved. It was in a part of town. I don't think it was in that.
No, because I hadn't started my business until late 2018. So yeah, it would have been 2019 that I was oh, I could do courses, which I tried a couple with no luck.
I think I have tried a lot of different online things and not all of them have stuck. That's for sure. So talk to me about like, so, okay, so you're a military wife and
Yes.
you said you moved. So
Yes.
tell me a little bit your journey about motherhood. So I know a lot about you, but so you've been with your husband for like ever.
18 years. So we met in high school and he was a senior, I was a junior. And we started dating and just never stopped dating. We went to different colleges, but they were about half an hour apart. And then as we went through college, we kind of figured this was like the thing, it was going to stick. We wanted to get married, but my parents especially were like, you just wait, like just keep waiting a little bit longer, go live on your own, you don't have to rush this thing. And so he had to go to pilot training in Oklahoma. I decided to stay. I got a job in Omaha, and so we just did long distance for that 2 years. And then he got stationed up in Nebraska for his first assignment. So we got married right before or right after he got up to Nebraska in 2012. And I wanted 0 kids. He wanted kids, but decided that, I don't know how to say that. Like he was good if all it was us. Like he was okay with that. And I think that created the safety that he wasn't marrying me just to have a big family. Like he was marrying me. And if we happened to have a family, that would be great. And so a few more years went by. I was like,
I didn't know that about you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I had no idea that you had that blows my mind.
Yeah, it blows mine too. Because we have 4.
You have I love them all too. I loved all the babies.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, we're gonna have 1. Pregnancy and I don't mix. And so we had 1 and I was like, that's it. We are 1 and done. No, like I cannot. He was deploying constantly. I was like, there's just no way. But I grew up with a sister. He grew up with 2 siblings. And I have enough of like a long-term look. And I'd seen my mom there were 4 of them. 2 had passed away early. So it was just 2 of them handling like their parents as they aged and stuff. And that was enough work for 2 people. I was like, oh gosh, if we put this all on 1 kid, she has no one else to like complain to that her parents are ridiculous and have these stories to tell later in life. Like that just didn't feel right to me. So I was like, okay, we'll do 1 more. And I got the positive at-home test, went to the doctor to confirm because when I did the math, he was set to deploy. And I was like, okay, if we have a test from the hospital, we can probably pull him off that deployment and shift it so that he's home for the birth. And the hospital was like, oh, it's negative. And my doctor was like, that doesn't make sense. You're telling me you have a bunch of positives at home. It doesn't make sense that we would have a negative. So let's just do an ultrasound. And so I went to that ultrasound expecting to hear that we had a miscarriage or something like that something had gone wrong, was kind of the mentality I was walking in with, only to have the ultrasound tech tell us we were twins. And so I was like, okay. I don't,
what a roller coaster
it was. And we questioned her ability quite a bit. Like jaws on the floor. We left the ultrasound room and just sat in that waiting room and we're like, there's 2.
Like there's two. Oh my God, there's 2.
What am I supposed to do? But I'm a very, like I said, my pregnancies are rough. I tend to hit depression. So there was a part of me that was like, well, maybe we'll still lose 1. Like maybe it won't be. Like it's so overwhelming for me. But they came healthy as can be, all went well. And oddly, they were the only ones after them. I was like, I think I'm supposed to have 1 more. And I think this was like when they were 8 weeks old. And the doctor was like, you've lost your mind. I was like, well, maybe, but we'll wait and see. And so we did and took our time. And then we had Jameson after we moved. So we left Omaha in 2019 for the military. Was not an assignment we wanted. Was not great, far away from family, but we've made the best of it in terms of adding Jameson, and Josh has been home. So that's been absolutely beautiful to handle.
And that's when you moved, I had this terrible situation with a former accountant and they had gotten me quite the pickle with the IRS and had not filed my taxes appropriately when they said they had filed. And then I ended up with like this giant bill and like it was just a mess. And so I think I had come to like a soul decision. I was like, it was like a money thing for me. It was like, who can I trust? And I just like your name, and I had met you, and then I had followed you on Instagram, and you just had, I was like, this woman is like, this is it. And I was just like, knew that I just knew I wanted to work with you for such a long time. So then I reached out and we hired you. And then it's kind of like fell in like, yeah, and then we just, who knew that, I don't know. I just loved everything about you. And I was like, I have to have her. I need to have someone that I can trust with my soul, like, because this is not working out. I was so out of alignment with my money, and just having someone that could nurture my knowledge the way, like, I just knew that you would be so generous with it was very nurturing is what you offered to me. So I just knew that and then eventually, just because of the amount of times that we had to talk and the amount of times I had to call the IRS, and you're just so endlessly supportive, we became friends.
After we moved, but I had hired you because my back was out too.
And
so it was like this joint thing. I couldn't find a chiropractor. I had read your website and I was like, if she could use this energy to heal from a horse accident, it's got to be able to help this. Like, I was flat on my back, couldn't move. And I had 18-month twins and a 3-year-old running around. And I was like, we had no chiropractor help because we're in this super small town. So all of my support system had left, and you were the one who could still help from afar. And so I think it was like that same time you'd hired me for taxes, and I had turned around and I was like, this has got to be the thing that can help heal whatever is causing this problem.
I thought it was a God thing. I had switched jobs, so my income had increased significantly. So yeah, I remember. It was so funny because I have, out of all the people that are on this podcast, you're the only one, well, besides my members, that a few of them I have members in my membership for the Divine Feminine Fertility Collective. You are the only person that I know in real life that I have actually never given in-person Reiki to. So like all the other women that are from the local Omaha, Lincoln area of Nebraska that I'm interviewing, they have all had in-person Reiki, whether in my home or at the chiropractor's office. But like,
I've been from afar the whole time.
I can't. Yeah, it's going to be amazing. So can you talk to me? So I remember when we did work together, you had one thing about our relationship that's so special is I get messages from your guides very clearly. And there's some things that have rung true. I was like, so when you shared that you were like third baby, and I was like, yep. And he is such a joy. Can you talk to me about like the differences of, so you receive Reiki for your back. Can you tell me how like maybe Reiki has impacted you or shifted your energy or your life or perspectives or mindset?
All of it, man. So yeah, what typically I would have said was a physiological issue. I now explore all sides. So I do know that like my hip has problems from having the pregnancies and having a C-section, but I also know that's not only it, that there's other things that trigger that pain. We had identified it was like some family trauma that was actually causing it to get worse. And once that's been dealt with and handled and that trauma has been worked through, the pain comes less frequently. And the pain heals faster when you address all sides of that. But I definitely, like when we started, I was like, I'll try this. I don't know if it's going to work. But I just became a better person too. And it's just nice to shift into that. And I love, because we are different in that I wasn't immediately drawn to the energy work. I was like, this might be a little too like woo-woo for me. And you've kind of like pulled me along with you. I'm like, no, Caitlynn, come to the side. You can see how wonderful it is. And I have been able to. And yeah, it's just all of it has shifted. And what I love is that it's shifted the house and the energy in the house and making sure hopefully that the kids will be happier, better, all the things from me changing and me being better. And we worked all the way through Jameson's pregnancy, and you were just so supportive because I was going once again toward an induction, and you were just so supportive through all of it and the energy and connecting through it all. in a way that I hadn't had with the past pregnancies, because I hadn't had this stuff where I would have always believed, I guess, deferred immediately to doctors. I was like, okay, but maybe there's a more natural path. Maybe there's a more energetic path. And so it's been great to explore all of those over the last few years and to continue on to the point of like, how can we get this next one as natural as possible? So it's been really good for expanding my worldview.
What I also love about our friendship is that because you are very easy to talk to, so there's a lot of things that we can explore together, that you'll listen, and just because you listen doesn't mean you agree. You're just listening to my standpoint on it, and then you give your take on what you think about it or what you believe about it. But one thing that we've both like share is we believe in God. And what Reiki has done for me was like made me feel closer and have a more intimate relationship with God. And like the things that I couldn't get in church, I'm just speaking from my own experience. But like with me being able to talk, because we became like best friends, like I'm like, this is like how like Reiki has allowed me to heal, but also like experience like something that I can experience God right now. Like it's allowed me to like become closer and feel things deeper in my faith that I never thought were possible, or I wasn't able to actually achieve like in my life in several different churches. It was like, be still or quiet your mind, or, you know, be centered. Like those were words that were commonly used. And I wasn't able to, and back then I was like, they used to call me Hurricane Carolina or Hurricane Carolina. Like I just like was always on the go, rushing through life and just like chaotic. But I couldn't. So Reiki has allowed me to like learn to quiet my mind, learn to get, and being centered actually just means to get grounded. It just means to collect all your, and I like can actually define those things now so that I can actually be quiet within myself to listen and know like, you know, how to listen. And it has allowed me to move closer to God. And I always love that I can express that to you, and you're like my safe place to, you know, did you experience this, or have you ever experienced this, or like, what do you think about this? And you're always just so supportive of it. And I am so grateful for that. You're such a safe place for me. So, but I also know that that's happened for you too. Like
you've been the teacher, yeah, in like the quieting of the mind. Because I think you said you've talked to human design, so I have an open mind, and so mine.
Oh yeah, human design
nonstop.
Oh, yes, I was just talking about my mind just in general being like crazy and just like, well, I meant like you being open-minded, like.
No, I understand you mean open-minded, but you've helped teach me how to ground and how to slow down and how to be present in that moment, because naturally my place is the same, except maybe not the energy of running around, but I like to not think and to not have a podcast on or something to distract me is rare. And so in the last 3 years, you've been such a good guide in how to slow and how to be present and how to turn that off, because otherwise we can't, like, I think I don't know if I have asked you, I always mean to ask you, but it's like, but how do you hear that? Like, how can you hear those things? And you're like, well, because I'm grounded and I'm present and I'm quiet. I'm like, I don't understand that. Like, I'm still working on it, and so in awe of what you are able to do and how you're able to be present and listening.
I have two easy answers for you. So one is that in Reiki, when I got certified in the different levels, each level has like raised physically my vibration, because you get symbols installed in you. I know that's such a strong word, but like basically you get a meditation and then the energy is put into you so that the energy flows to the palms of your hand, and then you learn about the symbols and you use different symbols to do different things. So with every certification, my like natural gifts became shortly after or instantly like very clear in those moments. And what they teach you is that you can't mess up Reiki. So if you're giving Reiki to someone, it's how there's a standard code of conduct and standards, and you learn like hand placements and like how to do it distance, but like you literally can't mess up Reiki. However, it's supposed to go in the person's body. So like you're technically, if you're doing in-person Reiki, you're supposed to spend 3 minutes on every point in the body that the certain hand placements for it, because it's a bell curve of energy. And for that bell curve to complete, you need 3 minutes on that spot. So that's like the technical thing. And I've had multiple teachers, so I just love knowing both sides. So if I spend so much time at a person's knees or in their feet, but your body's designed to heal, and they have something going on in their heart, the energy is going to travel from their feet to their heart and effortlessly. I don't need to think about, or if like at the beginning, you have several different symbols to work with, and you might want to choose like certain symbols, or if you overthink it. But so then if you let all that go and you know that you can't mess it up, and you just say Reiki flow, it will just come. And when you just focus on that energy and focus on what you're feeling in your palms, something opens up for me. And what that is like, I say a prayer before and after, a prayer of gratitude at the end, and a prayer of like intention. And then that in those sessions, once I got focused, like super hyper focused on what I was feeling in my hands, because I got to feel the energetic heartbeat in each chakra before I can move on to the next. I started to get messages about those chakras, but really was because I had just accepted that I couldn't mess up the Reiki session. Then I was like, okay, then now I can start to trust my intuition. But here's the caveat. I had a lot of practice, and it was because I had this deep desire to be a medium, and I knew that it was possible. And I truly believed that people had those gifts, because after my dad died, I saw a medium here in Omaha, Kelly Miller, and she had told me things that only he and I knew before he died, because they were those things that she had discussed were like how I arrived at his hospital room, things he said to me before he died, like very special things. And I was like, I want to do this, and I want to be able to continue my relationship with my dad. So after my dad died, that was the start of my spiritual awakening. I had this deep desire to develop this skill. And I just basically believed everyone is psychic. Everyone has this gift. It's just a matter of like how much time. I just kept saying to myself, it's just a matter of practice. It's just a matter of practice. It's just a matter of practice. So like during those early times, I would read cards once I learned to read cards, or I would, because that's actual tool. And I just like had this mindset that eventually it would come together. And it was just a skill that everyone has, but I also trust in myself. And I think it's because the Reiki teaches you that you have to trust that the Reiki can't be messed up, that what comes through is eventually just symbols. And that also knowing that I'm high vibration and I'm protected. And if I do channel that I'm not going to hell.
This is a big one in the community, I'm sure, of like, no, this is a good energy.
You have no idea. Oh, many times people have told me like, oh my gosh, I'm on Pinterest and YouTube. YouTube is a wild, wild west of comments. Yeah. Those people hate me. Pinterest is it's usually like, I had a comment from a Mary Hamilton other day telling me to go to hell and that I was going to burn, and just to pray for my salvation. And I said, okay, thank you for boosting the algorithm. But like, I don't know. I just trust myself. Sorry, I went on a tangent. I just trust myself, but it came from knowing that I can't mess up Reiki. Can I mess up mediumship or channeling? Yes, but channeling and just also getting to know yourself. Like, what are your clear abilities? And I hear and I see and I can smell, but also knowing like where, like connecting the patterns. So you talked about human design. So I'm a human design projector, and so are you. So the human design is a compilation of several different modalities: astrology, Kabbalah, chakra system, all kinds of things. I think it's a like a compilation of 8 things, 8 different systems. But there's 5 energy types, and the projectors are the natural healers, guiders of the world. But with projectors, we're able to see and connect the big picture. So I'm really, really good at noticing patterns, like exceptionally good at noticing patterns, especially in my own life. Like, all right, so what's the meaning of this? And I always think everything has a meaning. So I am able to connect, like, if I see a certain owl or a symbol or something over and over again, this is the hardest part, is trying to remember and connect to what my previous thought was, because you have so many thoughts. By the time you see the hawk or something, it's like, what the hell was I thinking about? And that escapes me. But it gets a little bit easier, but I just make a mental log. So like over time, I would have out loud conversations with my angels, especially Archangel Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael. Those are my favorites, and my spirit guides and my Reiki guides, particularly my Reiki guides. And I also would pay attention to how my body felt, and I trusted that. So like patterns of like certain sensations, like chills in a certain spot on my body, or warmth, or if I did talk, then like when I talk to my dad, I always get like a brown hawk. I don't know the technical word, like what type of hawk, but it's the same type of brown hawk that we have very popular here in Nebraska. So, and I just unwaveringly trust it, because it's evident that's happening. Do I know like the meaning of it behind? No, but that's the fun part of it all, is the exploration of it. So, and then there's certain things, like I also have mentors. So I have a Reiki master that has been my mentor since she helped me conceive my son, Ollie. So I was like, I experienced this. And then like, so with her mentoring, oh gosh, since 2017, she validates a lot of the things I experience and helps me decipher that. I have had other Reiki mentors as well, not as quite as good as her. She just is the holy grail, but like I just revere her so much. But I hope that's a long-winded answer. So I guess that 2-part answer is not very good, but that's my process. And like, it just endlessly repeated trust. Have I messed up on mediumship? Hell yeah. Have I hurt people too? Yeah. Like there's certain things, like I was basically just channeling, but there's just certain things you don't talk about. Like especially related to like death, or like, even if you get a vision or a message, you never talk about death. You just certain ethics too, that, that you have to follow. So, because integrity is a huge part of it. Like if it comes, it comes. Like the messages, it's not something I can turn on. When I go live though, and when I go live, they show up really well. I noticed that. So like if it's people I'm super connected to, their guides will come to me, and it's random. Like got stuck in traffic one time, 3 guides came to me, and like in that conversation, I called 3 people, and one of them's like, I just took a pregnancy test, and she's on the podcast. And yeah, so first, I just think you just have to be super hyper self-aware, which is like, I'm a self-projected projector. So it's like, I'm the most self-aware human you will ever meet. Notice the patterns and trust. Understand it could be messy. Sorry, that was long-winded.
But I love it.
So with human design, that's another passion we share. That has been such a great tool for me to add into the toolbox, just knowing that like how I can communicate better, because that's based on your birth date, birth time, birthplace. Yeah. And also just having another projector friend like yourself, just like, girlfriend, what did you feel that? Like, just like the energetic shift, or just like, knowing like, also knowing my children, like knowing your, like what, yeah, huge. Like I parent Ollie different now that I know he's like me. I like to give Ollie options. He's a self-projected projector, just like me. I thought he would have been like another type of projector. No,
my kids are mine too.
Carbon copy was this like copy paste. It was like, oh, so that means that I need to make, for him to feel mattered, I invite him. It makes a big difference. I'm like, I'm inviting you to, but I have to use the word invite. It makes him feel so and special, because your design as a projector is you're waiting for the invitation to take action. So you have to be invited to do business. You have to be invited to be received well, or for that aspect of your life to go abundantly, you have to be invited. So I invite my son, like, I'm inviting you to Barnes and Noble. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. What are we going to do? Can I come? Yes, that's why I'm inviting you. You want to come with me? You can get a Rice Krispie treat. It makes, so just like the little things like that, but like just the energy shift of like, like, because then that induces feelings of acceptance and want and belonging, which are so huge. You know, I didn't always have that as a young kid. So having to be able to break those patterns, but do it in such small ways of language. Beautiful. How I'm going to stop talking now, since it's like, you know, a mutual podcast. Can you tell me more about how human design's impacted you?
I think some self-assurance and confidence, and like, this is who I'm made to be. I try to definitely use it more as that tool and that empowerment than like a crutch, like, oh gosh, because I'm a projector, I can never do XYZ. Like really trying to lean into, I am tired and I'm never going to have as much energy as a generator, and that's okay. But it also just affirmed so much of how I felt in life, which was when we had the kids, like, I want to be more present with them. I want to pull back. I want to not, like, I got so frustrated going to work for 40 hours a week to see coworkers falling asleep at their desk. And then I still got flack because I had to miss work because I had sick kids, and I was missing too much work for my sick kids. And I was like, but the work is getting done. Why does it matter to you that it took me 2 hours instead of 8 hours? I asked you for more work. And also that gal down like the cube is sleeping at her desk. I am like at work. So I think just all of that affirmation of like, I am here to blaze a different path. And for like CPAs and CFOs, it is different that I work 15 hours a week and we make a good income from that. And but it's also helped because my employee, my bookkeeper, she's a generator. And so I feel a lot less bad now when I'm like, hey, I got these projects, and they're like here and there and up and down, and they're different. But for her, it is just wonderful because it's new and it's different, and she's got the energy to do it, and she wants to do it. She loves it. And so pairing those together has been great. And then just the kids, I've got the twins are Manny Gens. My oldest and my youngest are projectors. And so balancing those pieces out, but also the knowledge of like, okay, my youngest and oldest could share a room because they have similar energy levels and they're not going to take. But I could never put Malin, my oldest, with my twins because those energies would be awful. Malin actually still at almost 7 will occasionally take naps. The twins who are 4 are done. And so just watching the dynamics is great.
Much. Oh, I can't imagine. I'm just thinking about some of the stories you've told me about the twins.
Right. Like when I found out, when I did all of their charts and I saw this, I was like, oh, it all makes sense now. All makes sense. Well, and it was so interesting because with the twins, when they were babies, I had energy for days. I was solo parenting newborn twins with a like 2.5-year-old and starting a I guess I was getting to go on the business while I was feeding off their energy. I was constantly wearing these little Manny Gens, like baby wearing them. I had all the energy in the world. I go and have Jameson and I'm baby wearing him. I'm like, why am I so tired? Why? And he's the most open of the family. He's got like one defined area. He's a mental projector. And so he's just, there's no energy there. I mean, he's got the toddler energy, but like he does not fuel me. He takes for me.
So for people who are listening and you're like, what's a mani-gen? What's a generator? So projectors are the big picture people that help you heal, but they are meant to live their lives studying and learning things that they're very curious about, that they're very drawn to. So they will spend their lives in ebb and flow. There will be periods of time where they are just studying, and it may not look very busy, but that's periods of rest. That's periods of study, periods to fill in their bucket. So when they are busy or they are working with a client, particularly service-based businesses, because that's what I do, is they'll pour themselves in that knowledge and that wisdom that they had been studying previously into the people that they're mentoring or working with, or even if it's not related to work, to their relationships. So then they're tired. So usually projectors, I've been told, usually is best outputs 2 to 3 hours a day, and then naps. So they require 10 hours of sleep. They require a lot of rest. And generators are the worker bees of the world, and they require flexibility in their schedule because they'll have endless energy, but to do the things that they want to do, things that they light up. Manifesting gen is a combination of that generator and manifester, but again, just having a lot to having flexibility, and also just understanding that that what manifesting generators and generators are going to do are not ever their capacity to work. They're like, just the worker bees of the world. Projectors will never be able to keep up with, and they're not designed to, but they don't have the insight. Generators of any kind do not have the insight to see big picture. They sometimes can get really narrowed in their scope and not see how like things are connected. And that's why you need projectors. I'm not super well versed on reflectors. I've only met one in my whole life.
Well, and we learn through the other. So if you haven't had another to learn from, then you wouldn't have picked it up. But it's, you can, and it's funny as you learn these, you can watch the kids. So Malin is a projector. The twins are mini gens, and they were building something a couple weekends ago. And Malin's like, you're doing it wrong. This is not how it's supposed to be built. I know how to build it. I'm like, that is 100% your projector side coming out right now of like, I know best. I have the answer. Please listen to me. But the twins weren't inviting her in. They didn't want her help. They didn't want her information. And so I had to go in and be like, Malin, not right now. Let your sisters do their trial and error. Let them see, let them expand their energy and try different things. But yeah, she was like, I am here with the answer. Will you please just let me give it to you? And they're like, yeah, no, we don't want it. So funny.
I think it's the process. My husband is a manifesting generator. And did you say your husband's a manifesting gen?
No, he's a manifester.
Oh. I have another projector friend that's fairly a good close friend, and her husband is also a manifesting generator. So there's a pattern there. So manifestors. And so, but I do think that combination, projector married to a manifesting generator, is a good balance. What I love about, I don't know, you need both. You need the workers because they drag along the projectors, but the projectors say, provide the insight, and the support. There's just something so healing about having the big picture, but also something that every family needs is for the, where are we direction and like, where are we paddling to? So, oh my goodness. Is there any advice you have for, I like asking this question on the podcast. So for the women who are listening to this podcast, the intention was for them to just have stories and interviews of women that are inspirational, but like have used different energy tools to discover who they are and navigate motherhood, but also recognize like you're just not a mom, you're also your own person, and discover who that is through all phases of life. Is there any advice you have for a new mom that maybe feels like they've lost themselves?
There's seasonality to it. And I think it's hard. It's sometimes hard and we forget that. But there are seasons where the scales just tip. They tip different, where you're a little bit more mom than you are you, or you're a little more mom than you are wife. And for like the seasons will shift and you'll be more wife and you than mom. And so I think just recognizing that nothing that you're experiencing now is forever. The decision that you made today in that moment was that right decision for today in that moment. And it can look completely different tomorrow, and that's okay. And that is life, and it's wonderful. And it's constant ebb and flows, and just not to judge yourself for that right now, and then not to apply this like fatalistic picture to it that it's always this way forever.
It's so true. Seasonality. I wish I knew that in my postpartum. Everything was ultimate. This is like the ultimate end. This is the ultimate like, oh, they didn't show up. This is the ultimate end of our friendship. Everything was so absolute, and it's nothing is absolute. You know. So I really season out. That is such good advice. Is there anything about so you've done human design and you've done Reiki. So can you talk about basically your perspective on healing and if it's necessary? Like now you've tried different things. What I sometimes ask people, what's your relationship with healing? And they sometimes they're like, what? So I think, can you talk a little bit about that for you and what that means to you?
Oh, it's never ending, especially as a parent. It was either you or someone else. They're like, you're just reparenting yourself as a kid. And so that's such a huge part to realize, and that you've got these pieces to heal. And you and I have talked, like, if you were to compare both of our childhoods, they were night and day, but that doesn't mean that there still weren't things on my end that needed healed and that your end weren't good. Like there's so much there. But it's a never ending thing. And I don't know if that's a projector thing, but like, I love the self exploration because my goal is to improve and be better and make it better for my kids. I follow a mom of 9 on TikTok, and she was like, my job is to create healthy people for the world. And and so like for her to sit there and say like my legacy, part of it, she has a job and everything too, but part of her legacy is that she wants these 9 healthy children who have been raised in a healthy environment to go and continue that healthy living. And so I think really looking at it like that, and you cannot do that if you won't admit that there are things about you that are unhealthy, and there are things about all of us that are. I have a very healthy perspective that my kids will probably have their own healing to do no matter what I do. Like I will do my best, and it will still never be perfect because I'm a human. And so they're going to have their own piece, but hopefully I can show them how they can walk through that.
I used to say when I worked in corporate, I hope my goal is to give Ollie a childhood he doesn't have to heal from. And then that's heavy. I realized how, and I know it's just because I had such a rough upbringing, and there was oh my gosh, I've been in therapy more in my life than not, but like, just like, that just was an impossible thing to obtain. And it wasn't until I met with a shaman, good old Phyllis, I love her, the mama shaman on Instagram. And she's like, and I learned about soul contracts when I realized it wasn't my job to save him from everything. Is it my job to protect him and preserve him and do as much as I can, but also like what you're saying is to provide him the tools to navigate through life. She's like, their soul contracts is like, soul contracts are the things that you agree to before you come here, binding you to certain people, events, and traumas to help you evolve into your life purpose, that help you unfold your soul. But you, once you're human, you can decide what you're going to do with that. Are you going to heal from it and move on and evolve from it? Or are you going to let that stick and own you? And also that's part of your evolution in this lifetime. And each soul gets to decide. So what their reaction is to those events and those people and relationships. And I don't have control, nor do I own what Ollie's going to do when he's older. Like with those things, I don't know what that soul contract is. I don't know all those answers. And I don't, as a person, as a mom, I don't want to know all the things. It's not my lane. And it's my child, my only child that I have, but I will do everything possible to teach him how to handle people who don't like you, and that was something I learned in the past year, is like, it's not that I'm not raising a people pleaser. I'm not raising an obedient child. I'm raising a child that has critical thinking, that has the ability and the confidence to ask why in a confident, polite way, but also have a voice. And I think that just those small things, they're actually really big things, but me enabling that in my home and building that and instilling him in that can really just save a lot of trouble, because what I didn't learn was conflict resolution at a young age. I just learned that I needed to do things to make the conflict go away. And I like that, what you said, raising healthy humans. Yeah. And that sums it up, because if they can be healthy, like in all aspects, like what else, then let them go do their own fierce thing. Like,
yeah, we have a big family and we get a lot of flack for that sometimes. And I'm like, but I'd rather have this big family of healthy humans who are going to make an impact on this world than not.
I have to say that we've done stuff. We've gone to the zoo together, and I live for the stories. The one thing is that your children are confident, and they're confident in who they are. They are fierce. And I love that, especially the most fierce ones are the girls. Yeah. I think Jameson, he is, your youngest, is just, he's just such a bright light. But when I see the girls, they are going to change the world. There is something so strong about them, and I love it. I'm here for it. And I just think that just goes back to your parenting, and like just being open to giving them space to explore who they are, and, you breaking the patterns. But it doesn't mean that, sometimes when I talk about these things with other people, they're like, they get the impression then like, oh, you just let them run rampant. No, there's still rules, there's still consequences, there's still like boundaries. Like, you're still going to hold my hand in the parking lot, and no, you're not eating candy right now. Or just like, no, it's still done in our household. It just also means like, you will not speak that way to my husband. Like, just like, you can do this, but you're going to also learn like decorum and polite manners. Yeah. So, human design, parenting, Reiki, and all of the things. I just want to thank you so much for your time. You're such a gift to many, and I am just so proud to call you my very best friend. And I just adore you to all pieces. I love you. I hope you have a nice day.
You too.
Bye.